By 1973, Linda Ronstadt was a seasoned touring performer, dominating the California country rock scene since her days with the Stone Poneys back in 1969. But she had yet to break out as a serious mainstream artist the way that others around her were, like her friends the Eagles, members of which had been part of her touring band. Beginning with a challenging but formative tour with Neil Young, it was the mid-70s and the formation of her album Heart Like a Wheel that would help Linda reach the level of stardom that she was destined for. I'm Vanessa, this is Raised by Hippies, and if you dig content about music in the 20th century, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and drop me a comment with your thoughts on Linda Ronstadt and Heart Like a Wheel. Even after the Eagles were formed in 1972 and left Linda's heart a little bit broken, she was fully supportive of her friends, and they set off on a journey to take over 70s rock radio. They continued to play live with Linda and even backed her up on her 1973 tour. Linda had been working with John Boylan as her producer since her career began, but now their relationship had started to become strained. Meanwhile, her old pal Neil Young had recently blown up to megastar status with the release of Harvest. He was headed out on a major arena tour across the United States. Boylan saw it as an opportunity to shake her out of her rut, but also to introduce Linda to playing for audiences of a size that she'd never dreamed of. Boylan contacted Neil's manager, who also happened to be David Geffen's partner, Elliot Roberts, who initially said no, because Neil was insisting on playing the shows entirely solo. But after a few weeks of exhausting dates, he changed his mind, and Roberts called Boylan, who asked Linda, who reacted with wide eyes, sing in front of crowds of 20,000 people. She was petrified, but with some persuasion from David Geffen himself, she agreed to summon her courage, and she got on a plane for New York City. January 23rd, 1973, Henry Kissinger, America's Secretary of State, reached a long-awaited agreement in Paris to bring an end to the American involvement in the war in Vietnam. Linda Ronstadt was opening for Neil Young that night at Madison Square Garden. In the middle of Neil's set, he was handed a notice, which he proceeded to read out to the crowd. The war is over. Peter Asher was from an upper-middle-class family from Middlesex, England. His father was a prominent physician and medical writer, and his mother was a musician and an instructor. Shortly after the end of the Second World War, when England was still in recovery, they were blessed with fraternal twins, Jane, who would go on to be an actress, as well as the famous girlfriend of Paul McCartney in the early part of the 60s, and Peter, a man who would become known as the English gentleman who would help produce the music of Southern California. In '68, Peter had been hired by Paul McCartney to be the head of A&R at Apple Records. And on a mission to find new talent, he went to what he had heard was the hottest place on earth for new music, Laurel Canyon. He found James Taylor, who'd been playing in bands in New York City, but had recently moved out west after a stint in rehab, and helped him produce his first record with Apple. When the album didn't take off as Peter and James thought it should have, they permanently relocated to California, and he became his full-time manager. They struck a new deal with Warner Brothers, and James recorded Sweet Baby James, which subsequently catapulted him to stardom. Peter had proven that he knew what he was doing all along. Linda and James had worked together on Neil Young's album, and they were generally associated through the tight-knit West Coast music scene. When Linda saw what Peter had done for James's career, she was impressed and wondered if he could do the same for her. She had been laboring over her new album, first having Boylan produce it, and then J.D. Souther. When she met Peter, they clicked immediately. Linda finished Don't Cry Now, and it was released in the fall of 1973. It didn't exactly blow up, but it was a turning point for Linda's career. Just as Linda and her team were gearing up for the release of Don't Cry Now, she learned of the tragic death of Graham Parsons, country rock legend and singing partner of the ethereal Emmylou Harris. Linda immediately thought of Emmy and what she must be going through during that time, and she reached out to her to come join her for a few fun shows and to just kick around the idea of what it would be like to be a solo act without Graham. Emmy did join Linda, and the two became very close friends, a rare female presence in Linda's seemingly male-dominated life. Not long after meeting with Emmylou, Linda was introduced to another band who would have a profound impact on her music going forward. Back in 1969, a guitar virtuoso named Lowell George left the sphere of Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention and formed his own group, inspired by American roots music and rock and roll, Little Feat. Linda described Little Feat as her favorite rock band. Lowell was a slide guitar master, and he used a socket wrench, giving him a really unique sound to go along with his unique voice. Their songwriting style was unrestricted by conventional pop music forms, which was something that appealed to Linda. So as Little Feat headed out on tour for their fourth album, Feats Don't Fail Me Now, and Emmylou prepared to release her first with Pieces of the Sky, Linda recorded her version of Lowell George's Willin' and invited Emmy to join her on a duet called I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love With You. In July 1974, Linda Ronstadt was celebrating her 28th birthday, and she was right in the middle of recording what would become her fifth studio album at one of the studios at the Sound Factory in Hollywood, California. But her mind was drifting back to a moment some years earlier in New York's Greenwich Village, 1969. It was near dawn. Earlier that night, she'd opened for singer-songwriter Jerry Jeff Walker, famous for writing the song Mr. Bojangles, who'd been accompanied by the guitarist David Bromberg. The two of them insisted that after the show, she join them on heading over to the Cafe A Go-Go to see their friend, singer Gary White. After his set, they went backstage and he played them a song called Long, Long Time, which Linda would come to record on her first album. Because she'd had such luck with these three musketeers, she went back to Greenwich Village to seek out more songs. It was the wee hours of the morning and Linda and Jerry Jeff were in the back of a cab when he'd remembered a song that he'd heard by two Canadians called the McGarrigle Sisters, who performed it at a festival recently. So, as she described it, Jerry Jeff's face was barely visible in the gray light. He bent his head low, closed his eyes, and softly sang for me all that he could remember from the song. And out of his mouth came the first verse of a song by a Canadian singer called Anna McGarrigle, called Heart Like a Wheel. She was stunned, and Jerry Jeff had Anna send her a tape of the song immediately. The McGarrigle Sisters were among a group of Canadian singer-songwriters who would contribute something unique and heartfelt to the musical landscape. It would be 4 years until Linda was in a position in her career to really think about doing this song justice in the way that she wanted to. And now she would use it as the centerpiece for her fifth studio album, the album that would end up being her breakout.
It's really difficult for me to even approach being objective about my own stuff, you know. I really don't, it seems a really unnatural thing for me to hear myself singing from a speaker, you know. I don't mind doing it. I enjoy it while I'm doing it. I really don't like to listen to it back, you know. So I mean, I kind of listen to the guitar or something like that. So I can't really say, you know, I mean, if somebody plays a great guitar like that, I'll say, oh, that's neat, you know, my record's great, but if, I don't know, it's hard to say. I go through periods of hating it and loving it, you know.
The other song on the album that absolutely blew up for Linda was her cover of You're No Good, written by Clint Ballard Jr. and covered by a number of R&B artists. Back when she was touring with Neil Young, Kenny Edwards, who she'd played with in the Stone Poneys, had rejoined her band, and he suggested that she check out the song when they were touring back in 1973. She started adding the song to the end of her live sets on that tour, and played it fairly regularly since then, always with a great response from the audience. It was decided at the last minute to be included on the album, and then again it was decided at the last minute to release it as a single, and oh my god, thank God they did. All of a sudden, 28-year-old Linda Ronstadt was the it girl of the moment. In February, You're No Good would hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and its B-side, the song that she had done with Emmylou, I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love With You, hit #2 on the country music charts. The follow-up single, When Will I Be Loved, which was a cover of the Everly Brothers song, was also a massive hit, peaking at #2 on the Billboard charts. Before she turned 29 in July, she was invited by the Rolling Stones to open for them on some of their North American tour. She compared the experience to being thrown to the wolves, but it set her up for a level of stardom that she was now preparing to face after the success of Heart Like a Wheel. This included her first ever mini scandal in the media when rumors started flying that she and Mick Jagger were having an affair. His wife at the time, Bianca, shut that down real quick, but Linda would forever deny that she and Mick were ever anything more than very good friends. Rock and roll, I guess, right? If you're a Linda Ronstadt fan and you want to learn a little bit more about her and her incredible career as the queen of California country rock and later trailblazer for Spanish music in the mainstream, follow the link in my bio for the full documentary streaming now on Patreon. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more fresh perspectives on the music and people who made it in the 20th century.